So the cool thing about talking to you guys, you MACV-SOG, interesting fellows that you guys are. What's been very fun for me is the fact that your personalities are very different, and also there's some similarities. And I think just from my perspective, when I get the opportunity just to chit chat with you guys off the air, there's like this energy that's it kind of always makes me chuckle because I'm like, you're so different, but there's something that kind of unites you guys. And I was just kind of wondering, especially when you were active duty, and then also years later, when you guys meet up at SOAR, the reunion, and you get to see each other decades later. I'm just kind of wondering what your thought process is on, what kind of unites you.
You mean like when we see each other for the second time or after so many years? I don't know. Sometimes you don't even recognize the guys, like, hey, what happened to you, man? Where's your hair? Stuff like, but as soon as they start talking, yeah, I remember you and stuff. And some of my friends are just really funny. I have a buddy on an A team when I was on an A team. His name is Lou Merletti. And Lou Merletti became the director of the Secret Service. And so Billy Waugh gave me his phone number. So I call up and I get on the phone, the phone picks up and he goes, Merletti, like that, and I'm going, hey, Lou, it's Jim Jones, 8502. He goes, hey, man, how you doing? Yeah, man, it's so good hearing your voice. He just turned right back to the old Lou, when he's supposed to be this really proper person, working with the government, kind of. But it's really funny. And that's what it's like when you see these guys from SOG. I remember when I bumped into Toby Taub, I was sitting there talking to somebody, and all of a sudden this guy grabs me and starts jumping around with me and everything. Hey, Jim, I miss you, man. Like that. It was Toby Todd. So, that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, we're just, because there's only 50% of us that came back from there, and so many of them right now are dying off, because of their age. And a lot of people went into drinking a lot and stuff like that, just really screwed their bodies up. So, but I'm totally different. I got that British mentality, like, if you know what I'm talking. You watch some of the old British movies, like up, hey, I don't care if your leg's on the other side of the street. Go get it. Let's get back into the battle, and stuff like that, So I've got that same mentality. So I'm always kind of joking around and kidding about it and stuff. But even though SOG is extremely serious, it's a very serious project. So. But yeah, I just, I've done so many crazy things in my life. That's just one of them.
Well, so. And I figure in talking to you and setting this podcast up, two things I thought were kind of interesting that jumped out at me as far as just like you mentioned, like that British sense of humor, what carries you through. But two things, I guess, as far as humor and faith, and how that played a role. And even for you, I mean, we'll get there probably kind of near the end of the podcast, but just to kind of bring it up now, that must help you get through those situations.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it does. Yeah. I just tell people, you're not going to get out of this world alive. There's only been a couple of people that got out alive, and that was a space shuttle. They just didn't come back, so. So it was sad, but so I just take it like that, none of us are going to live forever. And the other thing I did is I figured the odds of being killed in combat is like 1 in 100, and it starts over each mission. So you've got a 10% chance of getting wounded, and at 1% you're going to die from it. And it's getting better and better as time goes on, unless, of course, like what's going on in the sandbox, and they run over an IED or something, and it just blows the whole thing up. Which is really that'll really work on your head. You don't know if you're gonna make it to the end of the road or not.
Yeah, and so growing up, because you had a very interesting entrance into the military in general, and then later on into SOG, but just from a little biographical point of view, just tell us a little bit about how you grew up and what led you to the Army or the military in general.
Well, I was born in Liverpool, England, and my mother was a donut dolly during the Second World War. My father was in the Royal Navy, the British Royal Navy, and so we eventually came to the States, and then we had to go back to England. They had to get divorced and stuff. And then when it came back a second time, that's where I got the name Jones. I was adopted in the name of Jones. My birth name is Shorten. So I was raised, my stepfather was a kind of a hunter kind of guy. He had the rugged beard, and he was always, hunting bears and hunting deer and elk and all kinds of stuff. So I kind of grew up in the mountains of Colorado. And so I learned a lot of stealth work, sneaking around, trying to get the animals without getting caught, and hunting, because I was hunting probably when I was like 11 years old. So, and that survival skill, sort of speak, got me through a lot of it in special forces too. And then when I was raised in the mountains, so I never played any sports to speak of. So when I got into high school and stuff like that, nobody wanted me on their team because I didn't know anything about baseball, football, nothing. I didn't know any of that. So I went in the gymnastics, and I did pretty good in gymnastics. I led it on the parallel bars and that sort of thing. So then I couldn't get along with my stepfather, and I think he was kind of resentful of marrying a woman with kids, and so I ran away from home. And so when I was I think I was like 15, almost 16 or something when I ran away from home. So I lived in an old mine area for a while. I stayed at friends' houses and stuff like that, but I couldn't handle that. I'd rather just go live in a mine shaft somewhere. Then when I turned 17, I was old enough to go join the Navy. So what I did is I went down to join the Navy, but I couldn't get in because I wasn't a citizen. So they ran all the paperwork real quick through LA and got me my citizenship. By this time I was living in California. And so I joined the Navy, and my life took off from there. My first duty station, I wanted to get on a ship, because I love the ocean and stuff. But I ended up getting stationed in Litchfield Park, Arizona. It's a Naval Air Station. And when I was there, I started flying airplanes, and I started skydiving and everything else. And I was 17 years old when I started flying and skydiving and everything. And it just took off from there. I was there for a year. Then I went to Norfolk, Virginia, worked on a ship for a while. I was on a pre-commissioning detail for the USS Arlington, but it took forever to get its commission. So I worked on the USS Danabala, which is a refrigeration ship, AF-56. I worked on it for a couple of months, did a med cruise with them and stuff, came back. Then I worked on tugboats, which I really like to work on tugboats. Hard work, but it's a lot of fun, good guys. And I worked on yard tugs for probably about 4 or 5 weeks. And then they had a levy come down saying, hey, we're looking for guys that want to go to shore duty in Vietnam. And I looked at this guy next to me. I go, hey, where's Vietnam? And so this chief hears me and he says, we're fighting a war in Vietnam. I go, but where is it? He goes, we're fighting a war. Don't you? I said, look, I don't care about that. I said, I'll go. Just sign me up. I'll go. I just wanted to know where it was, And then I had second thoughts when he was telling me it was like south of the equator or someplace down there, like, 127 degrees in the day, So, but yeah, I went over to Vietnam. I went through counterinsurgency training. I did survival school. I went through the school in Little Creek, Virginia. It's probably a little different, but it was the same instructors that did the UDT guys, underwater demolition teams back then. That was the precursor of the Navy SEALs. And some of the guys were SEALs, actually, that taught us. But went through that. There was 36 of us that went through. There was only 6 of us that passed. I was one of them that passed. And from there, you see, where did I go from there? I went over to Da Nang, Vietnam. And I stayed in Da Nang for 22 months. And I worked with I was a seaman, but I worked with the Seabees because they were all shorthanded. I'll tell you how shorthanded we were when we landed at the Air Force base there in Da Nang. And a lot of the Marines came with us, right? A lot of Marines there, but they didn't have all their gear to eat with. So when we were sitting there having breakfast, there'd be like maybe 15 of us sitting around a table, and we'd take a bite with the fork and pass it to the next guy, borrow his knife and cut it, pass the knife down. It was one of those deals, try to make a sandwich with the bread and just say you don't need a fork and, just eat the sandwich. It was that's how bad it was. And it was, everybody was intense and that sort of thing. So from there, let's see, where did I go? I went to a place called Camp Tien and it was on the peninsula in Da Nang, but it was on the south side, I think. No, maybe it was the north side. Yeah, it was the north side of from where Tilt was. John Striker Myers. He was at CCN down by Marble Mountain, and we were at another hill just up the road from him on a place called Monkey Mountain. And Philco Ford had a big base up there. They were getting hit. We got hit with the enemy quite a bit. The enemy would get on the hill and shoot down at our camp all the time. So we had that kind of a problem. But we were working 18 hours on, 6 hours off. And it took an hour to get back and forth. So we only had 4 hours. So it wasn't really worth actually going to the camp. So a lot of times I just found a place behind some boxes somewhere and just went to sleep. And then we'd get up and I'd drive the trucks or operate the cranes and do stuff like that, unloading barges and stuff. So I did that sort of stuff. And then the enemy put some poison in our water, and I got my ears really screwed up. I got a skin problem from it and everything else. So I ended up, they were going to send me home from it, but I said no. They sent me to the China Beach Hospital. And then from the China Beach Hospital, I went to the Philippines, Clark Air Force Base. Then I went to Kadena Air Base, Marine Air Base up in Okinawa. And from there, they were going to send me home. And I said no. And I went back to Vietnam. So I went back and I stayed in Vietnam for 22 months. And I learned the Vietnamese language while I was there. I had a good working knowledge of it. And so when I was finished, I came back to the States, and I had a hard time dealing with what was going on, with the protesters and stuff. So I decided to just go back into the Army. And when I was driving the trucks, I was picking up a lot of Green Berets, hitchhiking. So when I picked those guys up and learned a little about what they were doing, I decided to go in the Army, and I wanted to be a Green Beret. And at that time, that song came out, because I was going to go in the Navy and be a Navy SEAL. But then that song came out, and I said, heck, I can do that. So I went ahead and took my battery test as a civilian, and just went straight into Fort Ord, California for basic training. And from there, I went to advanced infantry training. And I was the outstanding trainee of the cycle for the battalion. It was I got that little statue and the certificate and all that stuff. So from there, I went to jump school, which was a piece of cake for me, right? And so there I went up to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and they put me through phase. We didn't have like what they have now with Special Forces. We have what's called phase 1, and then you go through your MOS training, and then you go to phase 2. And from phase 2, then they send you wherever you're going. So that wasn't hard for me at all. I had a hard time they put me in communications at first, and I had a real hard time trying to pick up that code. So I told him, I said, I talked to the cadre. I said, don't lose me. I said, look, I got a working knowledge of Vietnamese language. I said, I've already got, 22 months in Vietnam. I said, I worked with the Seabees, and I said, put me in engineers. And so they did. They took me out of communications, put me in engineers. And that was a piece of cake for me. All the demolitions, and I was good in mathematics. So I got all through that with no problem at all. And then phase 2 was a lot of fun. There was a lot of fun. They take you out at night, you parachute out in the Uwharrie Forest, and then you just work your way through there and do your job blowing up bridges and stuff, And then I called the Pentagon, talked to Mrs. Billy Alexander, and I asked her, I said, hey, I want to go back to Vietnam. And she says, well, don't do anything foolish. I'll get you there. So I was the very last guy to get my orders, and I was the only one out of that whole graduation class that went directly to Vietnam. All the others cross-trained. A lot of them some went to the 10th Group over in Germany, but a lot of them went to, stayed there right on Smoke Bomb Hill at Fort Bragg. Back then they had the 3rd Group, they had the 5th Group, the 6th Group, the 7th Group. We're all there at Fort Bragg. The 6th Group has been disbanded. The 8th Group in Panama was gone. That was when I wanted to go. I would have stayed in if they would have sent me to Panama, because good scuba diving down there. So, but they closed down the 8th Group as well. So from there, I went back to Vietnam, and I was on the A team, and I was on the A team just for about 5 months or so. They returned over to Regional and Popular Forces, and then I volunteered to go to CNC, and I went to CCC up in Kontum. And I had one mission. My second mission, I was a team leader.
Right. And so just to back it up a touch, just for the timeline. So when you finish with the Navy, you go back home stateside. Did you land in California?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that would have been, is that sort of like peak anti-Vietnam protesting at that point?
Yeah, I think it probably was. But I just didn't like it. I couldn't get along with, I couldn't get along with the people. I just couldn't get along with them. It's like, what are you afraid of? What you go to, what do you think everybody goes to Vietnam is gonna die or something? It's not like that. Not everybody goes to the sandbox is gonna die. It's usually those guys are going back for the 15th and 18th, trip, which is crazy. Their missions some of them only go back for a month or so. And like in Vietnam, even Okinawa, the first group guys were coming over to Vietnam, but they were coming over to do a mission. So they do the mission, and then when they're done with the mission, they go back to Okinawa. So,
right,
there's a big difference.
Mm-hmm. And so you figure, okay, we got to get out of the States. Let's go back. And so go the Green Beret route, and you go through the training. And then what was your introduction to, and you're wearing the shirt CCC as well. So for people who are tuning in, you can see the proud logo there. So what was your introduction into that? Because it's always the sign on the mysterious dotted line, and don't tell anybody. And
well, a lot of people say, a lot of guys didn't know, but we all knew what CNC was.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the word gets out. So, but a lot of the guys, like when I was in phase 2 special forces training, they said, whatever you do, Worley was his name. I think we just lost Worley, but he said, whatever you do, don't go to CNC. I go, why? He goes, well, you get yourself killed, you go up there. I go, oh, heck.
Sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, you just threw down the gauntlet, dude. So I went ahead and wanted to go to CNC. So when I got to CNC, they put me on a team with Dan Sturr, and he was the team leader. And he didn't have anybody on his team except for he had his Montagnards. So Dan's not going to be at SOAR this year, but he said he'd probably make it next year. But I don't know why he didn't have anybody on his team. I don't know what the deal was on the team. But he asked me if I would be his 1-1, assistant team leader. And I said, sure. So, because I had about 36, 37 missions when I was on the A team. I mean, I lived in the field when I was on the A team. I'd go out for a week, come back, have a bunch to eat, go back out for another 2 weeks, come back in, get a bite to eat, go back out for another week. I lived out in the field. So
what were the sort of missions that you were running with A team? Like, just so the listeners have an idea, relative to
just going out and trying to make contact with the bad guys that are going into villages and try to catch them ahead of time, find out who they're with and where their unit is, and I took like 15, no, I didn't. I took 12, 13, 14, 15. I took 12 prisoners when I was on the A team. So I brought a lot of those guys. One guy got shot in the leg, and we picked him up after an ambush, got him, and he ended up dying in the hospital, which was really sad. It was really tragic. He was only a 14-year-old kid, but that's because the enemy was losing so many people. They were using women and children, by the time it was over. But anyway, so those kind of missions that all you do is you just go out, you just wait for them. It's kind of like the opposite of what we did in SOG. Because in CNC, it's like we're that little few bunch of guys trying to go out and gather information, and we got all the enemy around us, and we're in Vietnam, they're the like 2 or 3, 4-man, 5-man team coming through, and the enemy's all around them, us considered being the enemy for them. So yeah, it's totally reversed. So, and so let me see, where was I going with that? On the missions were just going out and trying to gather information, try to capture somebody, find out what they're doing, that sort of thing. And that was pretty much it. Mm-hmm. They would hit my camp. They hit my camp. They overran my camp right before I got there. And then when I got to the camp, I reinforced the camp pretty good, put chain link fence around the bunkers, took the sand and put mixed cement with the sand. So if the bags ruptured, then the sand wouldn't run out. It would just be a concrete brick there. So I did that kind of stuff. I did a lot of good tactics. I trained the guys. I built a berm and had them learning how to shoot and that sort of thing. And that was pretty much it. And then they turned over regional popular forces, and that's when I went to CNC.
Right.
So, but I was good in the field. You know, I was really good sneaking around the enemy, and I didn't have I wasn't terrified, you know, like I see some guys that get really terrified, especially on the A team. They used to bring guys down. They'd send guys to come down and spend a week with me. And some of those guys were terrified. I go, come on, we're going to go on a mission. Oh, no, I'm not going. I'm not going. No, I had guys like that. You know, yeah, the missions in CNC were totally opposite. They were really, really dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And just really quickly, what do you attribute the fear that some of those soldiers were experiencing, like just lack of experience and just kind of feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, they're city boys. You know, I when I came back, I was underwater operations, and I got sent on a mission down into Panama, and so we're down in Panama running through the jungles, and they want us to teach the Panamanian guerrillas survival in the jungle. And I'm going, they live here. What do you mean? They're guerrillas. You know, and I was shocked. They were kids coming out of the city and had no clue about the jungle. You know, so it was kind of like that. And I'm going, wow, this is pretty amazing. You know, no wonder these guys lose battles and stuff. They just don't know, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So, and that's, you know, and then special forces, you know, are teachers. An A team is they're a teaching group. They go out to other countries. They teach that country how to fight their own war so that the American people don't have to go in there and fight for them. So that's what and SF is all over the world. A lot of people don't realize it, but they're all over the world.
Mm-hmm. That was what was interesting. I did a couple podcasts with Dale Hansen.
Yeah, I know Dale real well. Yeah,
that's right. And in his book, he does a really great job at describing exactly what you just said, that really the function of special forces is force multiplier.
Exactly. And then, but when the missions get tough, then you send the teachers.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, precisely.
Yeah, Dale's a character. I like Dale.
Yeah, yeah.
He used to run around the compound with nunchucks. He's really
that's right. Yeah. And so once you settle in and you right away, you get entry into this RT Delaware in the 1-1 position. Mm-hmm. And how many, you just ran 2 missions before you ended up becoming the 1-0?
No, 1 mission.
1 mission. Okay.
Yeah, talking to Dan said he ran a few missions with me, but I don't think so. I think we just ran 1 mission, and the mission was sort of rough. But when Dan came back, he didn't want to run again anymore, you know, because he ran a lot of missions. He had a lot of missions under his belt. And so he decided, you know, I think I'm done with this. I just can't run this no more. And so he quit. And so I'm bebopping across the compound, and the first sergeant comes over and goes, "Hey, Jim, how would you like to take RT Delaware?" I go, "Sure, where do you want me to take him?" You know, he goes, "We want you to be the team leader." The team leader? I only ran 1 mission. He goes, "Well, we think you're ready." And I'm going, "Well, I'll give it a shot," you know. So I became the team leader. And that was it. Mm-hmm. And then in between, you know, missions and stuff, I was still looking for a guy because I was by myself, just like Dan was. I ran a couple of missions with some of the other teams. I was strap hanged on a couple of teams. Strap hanging means like when a team loses a man, then you go on, you just go over and say, "Hey, I heard you lost a guy in your last mission. You got a mission coming up." He goes, "Yeah." I says, "I'll run with you." He goes, "Oh man, hey, thanks." You know, and then you just go do the mission, and you kind of regret it after you're flying in. I had one where I was flying in, and man, we got the shit shot out of us. That helicopter got shot up so bad, and he pulled up and they said, "Put us down over there." And the same thing, we get shot up really bad. And then he said, "Well, put us down over there." And he put us down over there. Next thing, we're getting shot up, and all of a sudden I hear, I'm hit, you know. And so I grabbed the guy, and they just pull us out of there, and that was the end of that mission. We couldn't even get on the ground. But chopper just looked like Swiss cheese by the time we got back. I was shocked none of us got hit except for the one guy. He got hit in the foot. He had one
through the bottom, through his foot that was hanging out of the Yeah.
Yeah, he was holding on to there was a litter pole there for stretchers, just happened to be there. And so he was holding on to that, and one foot on the strut and the other foot was hanging out there like he was getting ready to jump off. And all of a sudden, whammo, he got a bullet right through his foot. And so he's laying down, hitting. I'm holding on to him because of the centrifugal force. You get thrown out if you're not holding on for life on those things, because they're trying to get up away from those bullets. So, but yeah, he was okay.
Yeah,
So,
thankfully, yeah. And so the now your first mission as the 1-0, is this was the Brightlight? Oh no, pardon me, actually, because I have a note here before getting into the RT Delaware, where you ran a Brightlight with RT Illinois.
yeah, I
Okay.
ran Brightlight with RT Illinois. I had a bunch of other missions in between there with RT Delaware, but they were just like linear missions, road watch missions, that sort of thing. But the on that Brightlight with Illinois, what happened was Lynn what was his name? Not
Lynn Black?
Who?
Lynn Black?
No. Lynn Black was CCN. It wasn't Lynn, it was I can't think of his name. That's horrible. Anyway, he was a team leader for RT Illinois, and he was on a 30-day leave. And so what I did is they asked me if I would take the team up for Brightlight, because a lot of times you go up to Doctor and you're sitting on Brightlight and nothing ever happens. So they said, we'll send us up there. So we got up there, and then all of a sudden they had a mission come through, and there was a team was in contact with a heavy element, and one guy was killed, and I guess they towed him off or something. And one guy, they were coming out on ropes, on the strings, stable rig. They were coming out, and a bullet or something hit the rope, broke the rope, and he fell to his death. And so they want us to go in and get the body out. So why can't I think of his name? Anyway, he came up with me. He came up to see the team because he just came back from leave. And I'm going, he says, "Hey man, we're going on a mission. You want to go?" And I can just see the wheels turning, like, I just got back from leave, and you're going to do a Brightlight? Man, you people get killed on that thing,
That's right.
Yeah. And so Steve Kiefer, that was his name. So Steve comes up and he goes, "No, yeah, he can't say no. It's his team." So he goes with us. So I said, "Do you want to take the team?" And he goes, "No, you've already been briefed. You take the team. I'll go as the 1-1, and his 1-1 went as my 1-2." Sure. So the three of us went. It was a 3-man team. We go in, rappel in, and we're walking up the hill, and this Cobra gunship flies overhead, and he goes, "Hey, Carrot, follow me," because my code name was the Wild Carrot. So he just said, "Carrot, follow me." So I follow him up the hill, and I see the rope in the tree. So we go up and we dig the guy up out of the ground and stuff, and they have him come over, and they drop the ropes that we rappelled in on. And we want to hook him up, and they hooked me up, I hooked them up. So the four of us, I said, "Get us out of here," because we can hear the enemy coming. So as they pull us up through the trees, we got about past the first layer of the canopy. It was a triple canopy. And then I could look down through the trees, and I could see the enemy coming, and they're shooting at the helicopter, trying to get the helicopter down, because then they got us all, right? So they're shooting at them, and I'm holding on to the dead guy going, "Man, dear God, get us out of here," like that, because it's a crazy mission, 3 men against 350 enemy, So anyway, they got us up above the trees, and they started taking off with us. And as we got away, probably about 500-600 feet off the ground, this A1E Sky Raider just came right underneath me, just right under, like 50 feet from my feet. And he just kind of looks up at me like this and just waves like that, and he was firing flechettes down, and I just kind of waved on him. And we just took off, came on back, and it was a good mission. Mm-hmm. We got him out, got the body out, and nobody got hurt. So it was really cool.
And what was interesting about that is when you say 350 enemy, what was interesting about that is the fact that they actually got I guess they got a head count or something like that. Actually, that figure holds out. It was accurate in that case.
Well, these guys up in the air, they have a general idea. Plus the people that were on the ground, the team that came out, they had a pretty good idea. But like I told Tilt, they just count the legs and divide by 2.
Yeah, easy math.
Yeah,
easy math. Yeah, and so and those Brightlight missions, geez,
they're dangerous. Brightlights are really dangerous. I did have one that was a piece of cake.
Which one was that?
Paul Boyd was on that mission. In fact, we pulled Paul out. It was a jump mission, and they parachuted and they got kind of separated, and the mission was kind of like a fail. So they decided to try to get the guys back out again. They had a hard time trying to link up because of so many enemy, and so we flew in, and Paul just called us right on in, and we just dropped the ladder. He got hooked up to the ladder, climbed up, and came in, and we got him out of there. I've got a picture of Paul inside the helicopter too, when we landed back on the ground. But he, it was a pretty easy mission, which is very unusual for Brightlight. And then my third Brightlight was that Code Grade 4.
That's right. Yeah.
Actually, Bob Howard became in charge of Recon too, but he was a captain when I knew him. He was a sergeant, when he first got to CCC, but he quickly ran up. I didn't get to meet him until after he came back after receiving his medal. But what a nice guy. Bob Howard was just a sweet man. He was really a nice guy. I remember walking in, and to the old recon office turned into the recon bar. And so I walk in, and I see this guy sitting at the bar, and he's looking back like this, and he looks at me and he goes, "Jones, because you're Jim Jones, aren't you?" And being the wise ass I am, I kind of look up and I go, "Oh, Howard, you're Howard, aren't you?" Like that. So we sat down, we started talking and stuff. And I don't remember what we talked about. And then this Colonel McGowan that we had, he came in and started talking to him. And then that was the last time I ever got to see Bob. I mean, I've talked to him a few times, letters. They sent letters and stuff. And I sent him a nice card right before he passed and stuff, because he passed away from pancreatic cancer. But boy, what a nice guy he was. What a character.
Yeah.
So I did a lot with, I worked a lot with the guys that received the medals over there. What's the last guy that just got one there? Mike
Rose.
Mike Rose. Yeah, he was our medic. I saw Mike when I came back to the States. And then Frank Miller, I worked with Frank on the A team. And then we went to CCC. He went to CCC before me. He left A502 before the team turned over. And he was there with a guy named Carlson and a guy named Chuck Hines. And Chuck Hines had a Willie Peak grow off in front of him, and he died from the burns, which is really tragic. I was with him when he passed away. And then Carlson was killed in an ambush. So, which was really kind of tragic too. So, but yeah, and then Miller gets the friggin' medal. Miller was quite a character. He was your Rambo. Like in the movies, that was Frank Miller. He was like, if you can picture Stallone being real skinny, that was because Frank Miller was kind of thin and tall. So, but I'd ask Frank, I go, "Hey, what are you doing back here, Frank? I just saw you leave for a mission." He goes, "Killed 9 of those bastards." That's just the way he was, so. And a lot of people don't know it, but when he was put in for his medal, he was put in for a Silver Star, and it was upgraded to the Medal of Honor.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, I think they did it to keep him out of the field. Because once you get it, it takes like a year to get it. You can't go anywhere for a year. They don't want you getting hurt. Yeah. So, but I still think that's why they did it.
Playing the long game there, yeah, strategic move. Yeah,
but he was a nice guy. I like Frank. He was really a cool guy, real nice guy. But if you're in trouble, he's the guy you want to go get you. Yeah. Man, that guy, he won't cut corners. He'll go right in there. He'll kick butt and get you out of there. Him and Bob Howard, except Bob did it more of a military way, and Miller would just kill them all and get you out.
Right.
Yeah, that's the way he was. So I got to be careful what I say. He's got a beautiful daughter, so I don't want her to get the wrong opinion. Frank was really a good guy. He really was.
That's it.
Excellent soldier.
And so I got a note here that so as you're walking across the compound, and so literally my note says, "Go get the tank mission." That was
the one with the helicopter getting all shot up. When we went in to go get a tank, what happened is the guy lost the man on his previous mission. And the first sergeant said, hey, would you mind strap hanging with so-and-so? He lost a man on his last mission, and he's got a mission coming up. I go, yeah, I don't mind. I'll go. So I go over and I talk to him, and I said, yeah, I heard you lost a man. He goes, yeah, and I got a mission coming up. I said, I'll run with you. And he goes, wow, thanks. I appreciate it. He told me, he says, the mission's in a couple of days. Then he told me what the mission was. And I'm going, what? I go, for crying out loud, that tank's not going to be by itself. There's going to be thousands of enemy around that tank. That's one of their pride and joys, Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I did an aerial recon. I flew over the area, took some pictures of the area and stuff like that, and came back again. And he agreed. He agreed a couple of places that I saw. There were a couple of places he thought too, but those are the first two areas we got shot out of too. So, and then he just said, put us down the other spot. And then that's when we were turned in Swiss cheese. I mean, it was friggin' unbelievable. I mean, you could hear the bullets whizzing through the helicopter, not hitting anybody. Just, you can just hear them, but nobody got hit until he got hit in the foot.
Right. Yeah.
So I was just, and say, you can hear him hitting the helicopter, hitting the tail end and, by the gunner. The gunners, he wasn't even shooting at the time. We were just coming in because we couldn't see the enemy. We couldn't even see.
You couldn't even see them.
No, it was all open ground too. It was all open ground. It was slash and burn where it looks like tic-tac-toe, and then the hills, what they do is they don't cut down the trees in the creek areas where the hills come together like this. So you get these trees growing there, and you can't walk through those areas because they're going to have enemies sitting in there waiting for it. They probably won't have a booby trapped unless they know you're coming in. But because it's their place, it's their country. You don't want to booby trap your own area in case your own men get run into it. So, but yeah, that was a pretty intense mission and real memorable. It was a cool mission actually to be able to fly through a rain of bullets like that and come out not getting hit. I mean, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So you just get back and just pat each other on the back and say, hey, we made it.
Get ready to go again.
Yeah, I told the team sergeant, the recon sergeant, I said, hey, why don't you just drop a bomb on it? It's going to light up with all that enemy down there. Just go in and drop some bombs on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess they wanted to see how intense it was with the enemy, right. Instead of doing infrared at night, because I guess if you get underneath covers and stuff, they can't pick you up on infrared. We used to have this material we'd put on our back, and they could pick us up from the air. With infrared, they could see us going, which is really interesting. Through the canopies and all that stuff.
Oh, so it actually would show up through the canopies.
Yeah, well, you have to be. I mean, if you go between the trees, there'd be little bare spots. They'll see you moving through there. If you're underneath a bunch of covered leaves, they probably won't see you.
Mm-hmm. And because the triple canopy jungle, that's the thing that when I was talking with Tilt and Dale, just the fact that. And when Tilt had his run-in about a foot away from an enemy soldier crawling up on him,
grab this foot.
Yeah, that's but I guess that's really the case, that it at night it really is just black. Like you just can't. There's no light that comes through.
It's pitch black. I mean, you can't see anything. I had one mission where I was out there laying, and we heard the people coming. And I'm sitting there going, they're looking at me and I'm looking at them. We can't see each other. Just pitch black. And then we got up early in the morning. We were going to just try and get out of there. But we got out of there. I was strap hanging on another team. It was with Joe Vandiver. And when we started getting out of there, heck, no incident at all. But I think it was about maybe a couple hours later, we had a whole bunch of apes coming through. So my guess is probably apes going through, they were coming up looking at us and we're looking at them, and they might see us. I don't know. They probably got keen eyesight at night, like cats or something. But yeah, no problem. I had one that kept looking at me. Oh, that was another mission. I was on a mission with John Caviani, the Medal of Honor guy. Yeah, Johnny and I were on a mission. It was 1-0 school. and we're walking through, and all these apes, black and white apes coming through. And there was one that had long red hair, and he just stood there holding onto the branch with his feet, and he just kept looking at me. And I remember when Johnny turned around, he goes, I think he's in love with you, Jim.
Well, maybe he was looking at your red hair. Maybe it was.
Yeah, look at my red hair, And I'm sitting there going, I got my gun on him. I go, please don't attack, because man, they can kill you. I go,
oh yeah,
I'll just go away. He finally just left. And Johnny, that was an interesting mission because there was four ropes on the helicopter for stable rigs, and they dropped the ropes down, but there was 5 of us on the ground, and so John and I came out on one rope. Where it has a rope comes down, it has a branch comes down, and you hook up like this. Well, we just hooked one side here, and I hooked the other side up to him, and so the 2 of us came out on one rope, and we're kind of like hanging, and then John's shooting down at the bad guys, and we're spinning in circles. We're below everybody else because we're heavier, but he's shooting and we're spinning in circles. I'm yelling at him I'm like this. John, shoot the other way. Shoot. We're spinning so fast, and he's just sitting there laughing and having a good old time. So finally, I got my gun. And I started shooting the other way to try and slow us down. So
counterbalance. It's a counterbalance.
It was hilarious, but he was a good guy. I really miss Johnny. Just a sweet man. I really like him. Good man.
And I have a note as well here about that you were, well, danger close, I guess, putting it lightly, but danger close with a B-52 bomb run.
Oh yeah, that was I think that might have been with Joe Vandiver again. I think we were doing a linear recon, and we were right next to the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And so what we did is we were laying there. We had a hill between. We knew they were going to bomb it. So, but you had the road here, and then it came across, and there was a hill like this that came down, and we were just on the other side of the hill. And I'd say we were probably a half a mile at least from the Ho Chi Minh Trail. But we're up there, and we're bouncing on the ground when they did the arc light coming through, and they're dropping that arc light, and you're bouncing. I remember one of our yards got scared, and we told him, and I remember I could hear Joe lean over to him, and he goes, many VC die, and he goes, oh good, as he's bouncing on the ground. Like that. I remember that. It's hilarious. So yeah, it was like flash bulbs going off in front of you, even though there was a hill between us. It was like flash bulbs. It was so bright, because that's like I think when I was talking to Tilt, I think it's like 108 bombs per B-52, 108 bombs dropping, and there's 3 of them. So that's 324 bombs right there, each pass. So, and they do it 3 times a night.
And how big are these bombs?
I think they're 100, 250, maybe 100-pound bombs. Right. They're not real big bombs. I've got a picture. If you got Frank Greco's book, there's a picture of I'm on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and there's a truck laying on the side, and there's a bomb laying on top of the truck. Where it didn't go off.
Right.
And they look like they're probably, well, they got to be more than 100 pounds. I would say they're probably 250-pound bombs, because a 500-pound bomb would be a lot bigger. But it's very possible they could be 500-pounders too. I really don't know. I'm not good on all that nomenclature stuff,
Yeah.
I don't care about it.
Yeah, that's it. Bombs, and
that's right. Just whatever you do, just do it.
Big bomb. And I guess when they drop those too, you don't hear it coming, because they're flying at such an altitude that you can't actually hear the bombs drop.
You don't hear the bombs, but what you do is you hear the tray. There's like a load of bombs, and then a tray, and then a load of bombs, and like another tray kind of a thing. And so when they drop it, you're hearing the tray. That tray will come down and whistle. You can hear it coming down. And I've noticed that on every drop. I could hear it. I can hear those trays coming down. But yeah, that's it. When I went back to Laos, and I was up on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, I found a lot of trucks, man, all blown apart on the side of the roads and stuff. Tanks, airplanes that got shot down. Found a lot of those when I was up there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to do a book on that Cobra 84, and then it'll have a videotape because I got a lot of footage of a lot of stuff on the, so that it'll all be on there.
That's right. Well, why don't we, since we kind of walked into it, let's get into that mission. So, so this is you're with RT Delaware, so you're team leader 1-0 for RT Delaware at this point. And I guess was this in my note, at least I have that it was 2 weeks after the Brightlight with Illinois.
It could have been. It could have been a week later. I really
Okay.
don't remember. I really don't remember.
Shortly after, I guess. But
yeah.
Okay. And so just to set the scene before I hand it over to you to fill us in. So you get approached to do a Brightlight. This is in Cambodia. And there's an F4 jet code name, and this is Cobra 84 that went down.
Right.
And so it went down with 2 pilots, the 2 pilots, Eric Huberth and Alan Trent. And I guess the Air Force tried to get them out, and it was just too many enemies. So they just couldn't get to them. And so they come to you and they say, you know, can you try and recover these 2 down pilots? And I guess you're also looking for you bring on a new team member who's pretty interesting in his own right.
Yeah, Homer.
Homer. Yeah.
Yeah. Homer Hungerford. He had when I met him, he had 7.5 years of combat. It was Second World War, Korean War, and Vietnam, and that's all the active duty he had. He only came in for fighting. And he stayed, I think he eventually retired out of the military. I don't know. But he passed away in 2014. But he was like Ernest Hemingway. When he got a 30-day leave, he went to Africa and did big game hunting and stuff like that. Yeah. And he had a couple of 90-foot sailboats in Hawaii, owned half of a hotel. He had a hotel there, but he gave half of it to the person that was helping him, as long as she took his share of the money and threw it in the bank for him so he can, you know, go party and live his life. I saw him when he came back from Vietnam. He landed in San Francisco, and I went up to go see him. And he never drank when he was in Vietnam. But when I went to see him, he was at the top of the, you know, he's at the Mark Hopkins, and he's laying there on this bed naked, and he's got this French masseuse gal, you know, massaging him, and there's these champagne bottles all over. Hey, Jim, come on in, man, have some champagne. You like that? And then later that night, we took off and went to Sausalito. And he had a friend up there named Fred Lyons, who was one of the cameramen for the movie Hatari with John Wayne and stuff. And this guy lived in Sausalito. So we went and had dinner with him and everything, then went to Fred Lyons' house. And he had a movie theater downstairs, and he was showing us movies that his son was doing and all kinds of stuff. But that was just the way Homer was. He was just really a character, just lived a big, bright life, you know. Really a nice guy. So
yeah, well, and the fact that he must have been much older as well.
Yes, he was. That's why a lot of guys didn't want to run with him because of his age.
Right.
And a lot of guys didn't want to run with me because I was fairly new. You know, like
right.
Hey, this guy's only been here, what, 8 months? You know, something like that. They didn't know me. And I was always kind of quiet anyway. But so I asked Homer if he'd be my 1-1, and he goes, "Yeah, I'd like to." I said, "Okay, great." So we trained a bunch together and stuff, you know, at the yard range where you do your A&I drills, I&A drills, and that sort of thing. We'd practice with it, so the other guys get used to him. You know, the Montagnards would get used to him because they felt the same way, that he was a little bit old, and but I told him, I said, he's got a lot of experience. He's not going to cower if we get into a battle. I mean, he's going to be right out there. So that's why I wanted him. And so it worked out pretty good. So anyway, we had this mission come up, and so we go up to Dak To, and they told us that we want you to wait. It's getting late now anyway, but the Air Force is going in. So the Air Force tried to go with the PJs, and they couldn't get on the ground. It was just way too heavy, too hot. So they came out, and then they sent us in, and it was getting pretty late. It was after lunch. So they put us in, and I climbed down the ladder. And as soon as I'm flying over, I'm looking down, and I see the Ho Chi Minh Trail there, and I see this bridge, and I'm going, oh no. Yeah. damn, this is not going to go well, you know? So anyway, I get off the chopper, I climb down, wait for the next chopper to come in. Homer gets off, and then we start walking down. And as I'm walking down this hill into this saddle, you know, where it's all burned out from the jet going through, except for the saddle, because it skipped right over that spot. But when I go there, I look off to my right and I see 3 enemy, and my yard and I caught him at the same time. You know, actually it was my interpreter. Anyway, I see him looking, and I turn around like that, and I see these 3 enemy, and one guy had a rifle on me. And the first thing, you know, you have to think like lightning fast. I just said, Komsung, like that. I said, don't shoot. And so I just looked at, I went like that, my rifle, and said, you know, D Mao, get out of there fast. And so the 3 of them left. I couldn't see if the other guys had weapons or not because they were behind some bushes. But anyway, they left. And so I'm walking down a little bit further, and I'm starting to see all these bunkers. And there's a bunch of CBU sitting inside these bunkers too that didn't go off. And so then I look a little bit further, and I see this fence sitting there, and I see this communist star over the top of the entrance going into this fence, and it was a graveyard. And so I went in there looking for any fresh graves or any kind of writing on the rocks. I couldn't pick up the writing. It was like somebody wrote on it with a pencil. And so then right from there, we walk out, there's this big 20 by 20 foot meeting house out of bamboo on stilts right there. So anyway, we looked through that. There was nothing in there. So then we went ahead, and I started moving up the hill. And as I'm moving up the hill, we found a boot with a foot in it. And it was an American boot, but it turned out to be an indigenous foot. And as we're moving up a little bit more, all of a sudden, there's these miniguns are firing off. I knew it couldn't have been the enemy, but I'm going, you know, I'm trying to go like, what the heck is that? You know, and I got on the horn because the bullets are like they sounded like they were like 12 inches over my head. Yeah, I know, you know, miniguns, you know, when a bullet goes over your head and it breaks the sound barrier, it cracks right over your head. You really can't tell where it's coming from. So anyway, the bullets are flying over my head, and I'm getting on the horn, and I'm going, hey, what's going on? And he goes, you got 6 enemy trucks and armored cars coming after you, and a bunch of troops running behind it. So they estimated, again, like 350 or more enemy. That's just what they could see on the Ho Chi Minh Trail coming over to get us. They had no idea what was coming behind us, coming up through because of this triple canopy. So we get up to the top, and they said, we're moving, we're finding pieces of the jet and everything. And so we get up to the top of the hill, the second hill where it hit. I see these hooches that were on the ground. It was like squares, like it just wiped them out. And the whole village was wound over with bamboo. And so then I told Homer, I said, you go this way, I'll go this way. And so we ran around trying to pick everything. We picked up pith helmets and belts and medicinal bottles and kind of bandages and, you know, all kinds of stuff, uniforms. So we picked all that stuff up, threw it in the rucksack, and we came back. And then the guys overhead are saying, we got to get you out of there. I says, well, I'm not to the jet yet. He says, if we can't get you out of there now, you're going to have to spend the night. He said, we're running out of ammo, running out of fuel. And then there was a storm coming in. So thinking of my men, I said, well, I better get them out of here. So they came in with the first chopper. First chopper comes on down and gets Homer and 2 of the yards out. And then the next chopper comes in, and as he's coming in, I mean, they're firing, the gunners are firing into the trees as well. But as the second chopper come in, I told him, I said, I want 2 gunships on both sides, you know, Cobra gunships, and I want you firing in both sides of our team, just firing like crazy into the trees to keep the enemy down. And just as he's coming in, I guess he's probably maybe about, I don't know, maybe not even 100 meters out. But anyway, he's coming through, and all of a sudden these guys start breaking through the bushes, and one gets an RPG off. It hits a bush or something next to me, and it goes off. And I got hit in the arm, in the chest, and a blister here. It's a blister with a shrapnel in it. And I still got some shrapnel in here. But then we were shooting like crazy, trying to keep them down. Some of the other guys got peppered with that, what do you call it, that B40 round, the RPG. We got hit with it too. And but we're keeping the bad guys down. And as a chopper comes in, he's dropping the ladder. And so we're running over, shooting and getting on the ladder. And we just hook up to the ladder, and they just take off, you know. So, but the when he was coming in, I hear this bam like that, and I'm going, oh, I'm waiting for the chopper to fall down on me. I thought he got hit with an RPG, but what happened is he hit a tree and knocked 2 feet of his rotor off on both. So, but he still managed to pick up and get out of there. And then we got out of there, and then the enemy just started. I mean, the good guys just started just pounding that area with ammo and stuff like that. And we couldn't get. I could see the jet, but I couldn't get to it. And when I went back again in 2017? No, 2002. I went back and I went over to where the jet was, and then I realized that the hill was like this. Where I was on this hill trying to go down and get up the other side, chances of getting to that jet would have taken quite some time, and chances are there was probably a lot of enemy there already. But like I said earlier, a year ago, I guess, or a year and a half ago, they found a dog tag of Alan Trent, and they found some bones as well. But the bones, the second year, last year, I think they found some bones, but the bones turned out to be animal bones, not human. So, and I'm hoping to go back again. I've been back. I went back on my own dime where I, walked 100 miles each way, 100 miles there, spent 3 days there, 100 miles back. And then I went back in 2017 with DPAA and stayed there for 6 weeks, helping them to dig up everything and go through it, looking for teeth or anything. And, but now they got a civilian company going over and doing everything. And so I'm hoping to be able to go back with those guys. So I don't know how in depth you want me to get them with all that, because it's a real long story.
No, yeah, we'll get into it. And so I just had a couple questions as well. So as you're getting extracted, once the enemy starts closing in on you, how close were you to the jet?
I would say probably straight line distance, probably about 100 yards.
Right. And so then
the hill was like this. The first one we landed on, it came down like real kind of mellow, and then it came back up to this hill, and then this one here just went straight down.
That's right.
And then straight up to the other side.
Mm-hmm. And the jet came to rest on hill 3, which was the steep one. Right. And so you get extracted, and you try to get the pilots and you couldn't, right? And so I guess when you get back to base, that's when you have an interaction with
the Cobra 8-3.
Yeah. And so they were the ones who saw Cobra 8-4 go down.
Yeah, it was a huge fireball when it hit. And the engines actually left the fuselage on the first hill, and they landed not too far from where the jet rested. Not too far. I'd say probably maybe 50 to 100 meters. Both engines. I saw the when I went back in 2017, we found the engines.
Right.
So I've got a picture by one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it's it was really, really, really steep.
Mm-hmm. And once you talk to the pilots from Cobra 8-3, I mean, what does that feel like to tell them? Like,
it sucks, man. I'm a doctor, and I hate it when I have to tell people you got cancer. I hate it. And you'd be surprised how many doctors want me to tell the patient so they don't have to deal with it. Because I'm a radiologist, and I go over the films, and I'll call the doc up and say what I found, and he goes, you want to just tell the patients, because keep asking, they always ask you what you find, and he says, well, if you want to tell them, you can. I'm like, well, thanks.
Yeah.
And I tell him, I said, it's always possible it could be an infection, don't look at the worst, just deal with it, that kind of thing. And yeah, some of them it's really bad. So I had one where I pulled the film down, and underneath the clip where the film was, I found another lysis in the bone, and I'm going, oh no. Because first I thought it was an infection, and I'm going, no, it's not. So poor thing. She was such a sweet gal. She didn't make it. But anyway, yeah.
And so you have that interaction, and and life goes on. You continued with a bunch of missions. Like we kind of touched on those a little bit earlier. But that one, I mean, that one stuck with you.
Oh yeah, that was the only mission I ever failed on where I couldn't get to the jet. I mean, I had, I don't know, 48 or 50 missions. I think less than 50. So maybe around 48 to 49 missions, something like that. I really don't remember. I never counted my missions, you know. Going by helicopter, I'd put down the, you know, the date and stuff, you know, for the air medal thing. But other than that, no, I really don't know.
Right.
When I was on the A team, a lot of my missions were by truck. You'd truck in, get out, and go for the jungle. A lot of them you walk in, you know, so.
And so then, you know, as the years go by, then you finish up your time in SOG, and then decades later, you're stateside. You, as you mentioned, you become a radiologist, and so you know you go on this whole other career path, life path. But that mission, you know, kind of sticking with you, and then just as you mentioned, so you go back on your own dime. You know, you get a bunch of camera equipment, and you head back in 2002. And so, yeah, we'll kind of go through a bit of the details, because some of this stuff is as I'm making my notes for this, I'm like scratching my head. I'm going, what? You know?
Well, there's a big career right between those two.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right. We're going to get to that in the second podcast.
Rescuing too.
That's right. Yeah.
So then on that, what I did is one of my buddies, I was on the A team. He was a medic on the A team with us. His name is Harlow Short. And anyway, I saw Harlow's name pop up on my computer, so I contacted him. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm in Washington." He said, "I said, well, what? I'd like to see you again." He says, "Okay, I'll come on down. I've crashed with you for a few weeks." So he came down to Tucson and stayed with me for a few weeks. And I told him, I said, "I'd like to go back to that crash site." And he goes, "Well, let's go." Like that. And so anyway, I got a bunch of information I could from DPA. It was Joint Recovery Teams back then, JTC or something, I can't remember. But they gave me a whole pamphlet, all the information, where it was, because all those years I thought it was in Laos, and then it turned out to be in Cambodia. So anyway, they gave me all that information. I went over with Harlow, and I gave Harlow like $16,000 and something like that. And I said, "Hey, why don't you go over and get everything set up?" And he goes, "Okay." So he took off and went back to Cambodia, and I told him I'd be there probably in about a month or so, maybe 2 months. So I told where I was working, I said, "I'm going to take a vacation." And because I was working 24/7, I mean, I was so beat reading x-rays. So anyway, so I left and went over there and met up with him. And we just went all the way up to Ben Lung. We got to Ben Lung, which is south of the Tri border. I talked to this hotel owner and asked him, I said, "I'd like to go up there and take some, footage of wildlife, because it's a big, Reconnaissance province is a huge wildlife refuge now. And they're still having problems. They got tigers and everything in the area, but the Vietnamese come over and are killing all the animals, and especially the tigers, because of the bile and stuff. They think it makes them superhumans or something. I don't know. But so anyway, he introduced me to a ranger that was there. And I told him what I was doing. I told him I wanted to go take pictures, and I showed him this map and stuff. And he's looking at me and he goes, "Uh-huh." I says, "Well, let me tell you the real reason."
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
And I told him, and he goes, "I know the crash site." So we got 5 other guys, and we took elephant for a while. We took trucks for a bit, got on some elephants, went up by elephant for a while. And then we took river boats and got up as far as we could on river boats. And then we had to get off, and then we had to hump like 100 miles through the, up over mountains, around mountains, up rivers and stuff like that. So what takes like 45 minutes on a helicopter took 10 days on foot,
Right.
So, but yeah, so we hiked up through there, and it was a great time. Really, it was a really good time. Living off the land, sleeping out in the jungle. I mean, I loved it. I love the jungles. I really do like the jungles. So, but it took us 10 days to get up there, and then we got down where the trucks parked. We set up a camp just off to the side of where all the trucks were parked on the mission. And I found all kinds of stuff, nose cones, flechettes, all kinds of. I took a metal detector, but it was just ridiculous because of so many bullets. There's zillions of bullets all over the place. And then I realized what took the enemy so long getting up that hill, because the hill that went around, I told you, was really steep on this between the second and third hill. That hill came around. And when it came around, it was really hard. It took us probably 3-4 hours to try and get up that hill. Because for every, 3 steps up, you take 2 steps back. It's like, it was ridiculous. So, but we finally got up there. I hunted all over. I found over 60 bunkers. I found communication wires all around. So it turned out to be, what it actually turned out to be was a hospital. It was a hospital for everybody getting injured on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And when I went back in 2017, one of the guys from Stony Stony Beach. Stony Beach, one of the guys that over there, they work with getting information from locals about if somebody says, well, I think I found a piece of an airplane or something. They go in and they try to see if it's something where the guys were missing, and so he does that. But he went on down, and it was when we were up there hunting for the remains of the 2 pilots, the Vietnamese were down there looking for their people. And he asked them, and he said that no, it was a hospital. It was a hospital, and they said that he asked them, how many people do you think were killed here? And he says, well, we found the remains of 127 so far, and he says we're still missing over 100. So there's over 227 people killed that they know of right there, and how many died from wounds later, we don't know. But it was just a hellacious battle. I felt horrible. I said, why don't they just let us go in and get the bodies out? They're dead, let us just get them out, but they don't think that way.
Right.
So.
And one of the things as well that I thought was kind of interesting, like something that you wouldn't normally suspect or think of, is that like with the crash site, that it gets scavenged and, by bandits and just people from Vietnam coming over the border. And just earlier, I should mention when you said the tri-border, just for the listener. So it's Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. So that's right. that tri-border area that we're referring to. And so I guess that would have, I guess, made it more challenging, the fact that you go back, 3 decades-ish later to an area that's been picked through and scavenged. And that's when, and in 2002, that's when your journey kind of comes to a bit of an abrupt end in that one.
Well, when I was there in 2002, I found a lot of debris from the airplane there. Not as much as from when I went back in, when was that mission? There's I don't remember, what was that? It had to be 67. It had to be 67 right in there.
Okay.
May 67. Again, I know it was May 14th. I can't remember what year. That's horrible. What's in my tea? So, but anyway, yeah, when I went back in 2002 or 2017, all the stuff that I found, that was gone.
Right.
That was gone. They were finding stuff, but it was all buried under the ground. And we had to dig down like 12 inches because it's like, since that time period, like the jungle grows, mountains grow, from all the debris coming down from the trees and stuff turns into soil and just keeps growing. But you have to go down, and the soil is so acidic over there that it eats a lot of the bones. And so hopefully what you can do is you hope you can find some teeth, but you got to take the roots out of some of these trees and stuff and break them up, because the tooth could be inside one of those roots. So it's real hard work. Those guys that go over and do that work, they're amazing. They're really amazing.
Well, and it's essentially like archaeology work almost. Like
it is archaeology. Yeah, they block it all off. They line it up. They cut down. They take notes on everything, and every little bit that comes down, like if it comes running down the hill, they catch it and it all goes in the buckets, and then you throw the buckets in a shaker and you're going through everything trying to clean it out. So it's a real tedious job. But the guys, the military guys, it's a joint group too. They got Air Force, they got Marines, they got Army. I think that's about it. It's Air Force, Marines, and Army when I was there. But they all work together. They work really hard. Man, they work hard. You see like little kids that are like so full of energy when they're going to go to Disneyland. It's like that every day up until the end of each day. And you stay out there at night. And every other night you can fly back into Ban Lung on the helicopter, and you can take a shower and have a bite to eat, and then you go back out in the morning, and then the next crew can go out, and they get the day off, take a shower, sleep, get a decent meal, because we're sleeping in hammocks, and stuff. So some of the guys that have been doing it for a while, they had the air mattresses and nice beds and tents, and yeah, and they have to build showers and everything else, for the guys and the girls, because it's mixed, both men and women. So, but it was really interesting. So, but let me see. Getting back to, they found 127. Apparently, the enemy has this thing they wear around their neck, and it's got their message in like a tube or something they wear, on their underneath their uniform, and they were finding a lot of that stuff. But they were finding bones, which is interesting. So that means that the acidity of the soil kept some of those bones there still. So I'm just hoping they find Dallin Trent. There's rumors that Eric Huberth might have been taken a prisoner, and then he might have died in a prison camp. But I can't imagine he probably would have died really quick, because that jet hit so hard. I'm sure he had spinal injuries and everything, but I think they were both killed. I think they were both killed right there. I really do. So, regardless of the rumor.
And so the result, I guess, of the two times that you went, so 2002 and then 2017, you were able to find some wreckage and, signs of the jet, I suppose. And then the dog tags were found in 2019.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
19 or just a few years ago. I brought back pieces of the jet and gave it to the family. I still got a piece to give to Alan Trent's family, if they're interested. They haven't contacted me, and I haven't heard back. So I stay in touch with the sisters. We're friends on Facebook.
Yeah, and that was interesting too. Like when we were chatting about that, it's I guess the way that some families deal with, again, I guess it kind of comes down to how you handle grief, and everybody handles that differently. And so it was kind of, but even the fact of getting some of that back to his sister was it wasn't like an initially welcomed thing, I suppose, or how did that work for you, or your experience with that?
What I did is the Joint Recovery Team people back east in Washington, they went ahead and contacted the family and said, we've got a guy that he would, if you're interested in talking to him, he was on the actual mission. And so they wanted to talk to me. So I talked to their mother. She's deceased by now, but I talked to her, and there was a little anger there and stuff like that, but I don't think they understood the whole concept of what actually happened. They don't realize how hard these missions are. They're horrible.
And I suppose would they have been told that they died in Vietnam because it was or would they have been told because it was
probably told them,
right?
Yeah, they probably told them that they were died on a mission in Vietnam.
Right.
That's probably what they told them. The same with all our decorations. All has a paramilitary, Vietnamese paramilitary group in Vietnam. None of our. If you get the medals today, they'll come. They put down Cambodia, Laos, stuff like that. But back then they didn't. It was all Vietnam stuff. But I think that's it. With the family, we stay in touch. They let me know, because the recovery teams let them know what they find and stuff. So that kind of works out pretty good. Right. And then they pass it on to me. And we're both good friends with one of our friends over in Cambodia that keeps us informed as well.
And so the two times that you went back, uh, obviously the first time, like when the mission was actually occurring, that's a pretty tough feeling to, essentially have an unfinished mission. You have to leave, and you had to leave him there.
Yeah.
But did it sort of feel like you had a bit of closure, or you felt better about the situation when you went back in 2002 and 2017, where you could really get a bit of a lay of the land? And
That was it. That's what it was. It was the lay of the land when I realized that there was no way I can get to the other side to where the jet laid to rest. That helped me out tremendously there. And I still don't know how many enemy were coming up behind. In retrospect, I'm sitting there going, well, maybe I can get the team out and I'll just stay there and just hide under, run and hide or something like that. But there's no telling who I'm going to run into.
Mm-hmm.
So I could get myself captured real easy. So it's probably the best thing is just what I did, just to get the team out of there and keep them, keep them alive, especially with Homer, because chances are, Homer probably wouldn't have made it if they would have interrogated him, and they probably would have just killed all the mercenaries that I had with me.
And so, as far as just the closure from your end, I don't know, how does that feel? Does it sort of feel like?
Well, I still don't have closure. I'm sure, just like the family doesn't have closure, but they're more closer. It's obvious as a family member. But it just kind of hurts because I never failed on a mission, no matter what the mission was. I mean, I've had some really hellacious missions and I've always managed to get them done. I had a PJ mission where I jumped into 32-foot seas and nasty storm and winds and everything else, but we got the guy out and saved his life, so, but yeah, in Vietnam, yeah, I never ever turned down a mission, but when I took a mission, I always wanted to complete that mission. I felt like I was a loser if I didn't finish it. You know what I mean? So, some guys will say, well, it's the best I could do. But no, not me. And it just eats me alive until I can get them.
Right.
So, and I think we're getting close to finding out what happened and the truth and everything.
Mm-hmm.
If Eric Kuberth was taken as a prisoner, he couldn't have gone very far. I'd like to know where that prison was. And when I went back over, I looked all over the place for that, trying to find old people that lived in the area during, like, before the Khmer Rouge and stuff. And I couldn't find anybody. And some of them say, yeah, there was some place here, but we don't remember. And because I had my interpreter with me, right, from the Rangers. But yeah, I'd love to find out where that prison was, because if there was a prison, that means there's other Americans there somewhere.
That's right.
So they can find it. Boy, that'd be just the cat's meow.
Mm-hmm.
Just dig them up and find everybody who's there. So.
And do you anticipate going back? Because I know there was something about the DPAA, and just for the Defense POW MIA Accounting Agency. You were supposed to go back with them and didn't, or?
Yeah, I was supposed to go back with them, and they said I'd be going, and then they changed their mind at the last minute. Because I called him up and I said, hey, shouldn't I be coming over? He goes, oh, the team's already on their way. I'm going, come on, man, And now they got a civilian group. And so I've been talking with the civilian group, trying to get them to and they said that it's not up to us, it's up to DPAA. They can't just bring anybody on board. They got to be approved by DPAA. And I think the biggest thing is my age. I'm 77, and I think that might be one of the problems they're worried about. I mean, I still jump out of airplanes and scuba dive and everything else. So, but I think this time when I go to the SOAR meeting, the Special Operations Reunion, I'm going to talk to DPA guys there. I'll talk to them and find out, because they usually bring a guy in from DPAA. I'll talk to him and find out what the scoop is, and he's probably going to give me a runaround. They don't get it. They really don't get it. The people on the ground do, but the officers, they don't get it. They're in their own little world.
Well, and I suppose that's the discrepancy between, that's how things get lost in bureaucracy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got more important things to deal with in their mind. So it's sad.
Well, and I think at that point, at least for today or for right now, I think we'll conclude here. So for the listener, they can go right on to the second episode, part two. Because it's always funny the way that these always work out. I always talk to you guys ahead of time, and yeah, we'll get it done in one go. It never works out that way. We always go over the time, and so I think what we'll do is we're just gonna do a second episode, and we're going to talk about the pretty lengthy career that you had right after SOG as well. And then we'll get to present day and cover all the intricacies there. But thank you so much for being here, Jim. I really appreciate it.
Oh, hey, my pleasure. Anytime. I really enjoy doing these. This is my little bit of immortality.
That's true. That's right. Yeah, exactly it. Well, and I really appreciate the fact that you reached out to me. That was very cool, and I really appreciate that. It was very flattering, and it's always a good feeling. I love talking about. It's kind of funny how you find a little niche within a niche that I have here at this podcast. But
well, I know one of the things you were talking about was like for the kids, a lot of young viewers.
mhm.
And anytime you want to talk about that I'd love to, how I lived and stuff and how I did it on my own and how I managed to, because I was 21 when I had to go. I had to get into the Army. I had to have a high school diploma. A GED wouldn't work. And I mean, you can get into the Army, but you couldn't get into Special Forces. So I went back to high school at 21 years old. And they finally got tired of me there and said, "I'm just going to give you a diploma," and they kept me out.
Yeah, get out of here.
Diploma. So that worked out really well. But starting from nothing and not having anything and ending up as a doctor, is I think is anybody can do it if I could do it.
That's it.
It just got to work at it.
So. Yeah, and we'll get into that. We'll get into that for this for the next episode. So, but yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you, sir.